Welcome in, everybody, to another deep dive.
Yeah,
This time into Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages.
it's a big one.
Oh, yeah, it's a big one.
And it's dense.
So dense.
So much packed into it. History, philosophy,
Symbolism.
symbolism. I mean, it's like a Rosetta Stone on steroids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's a really good way to put it, because our mission here with this deep dive is to try to break it down,
Right.
unpack it in a way that people can actually make sense of.
Absolutely. And, one of the first things that I think people should realize going into this is that Hall is presenting this idea of ancient mystery schools not as like these secretive, exclusive groups, but almost like vibrant centers of learning, almost like, ancient universities more than shadowy cults.
Gotcha. So, like, were they, I'm thinking of, like, toga-clad students debating philosophy under the Athenian sun. But, like, what kind of knowledge were they seeking? Was it all, like, heady philosophical concepts, or were they also trying to do things like, I don't know, learn ancient engineering and astrophysics?
It was both. It was both, really. I mean, the idea was for them to understand the universe, the humanity's place within it. It wasn't just an intellectual pursuit. It was a way of life.
Okay.
So studying nature's laws, the movements of the stars, the principles of mathematics, geometry.
Yeah.
These were all ways to unlock the secrets of a harmonious and meaningful existence.
So it was kind of like a blend of science and philosophy and spirituality all kind of rolled into one?
Exactly. And, when you think about figures like Pythagoras and Socrates,
Yeah.
they weren't just philosophers in the modern sense. They were initiates of these mystery schools.
Oh, wow.
So they saw knowledge as this path to self-transformation,
Right.
a way to align yourself with this, cosmic order and achieve a higher state of being.
Yeah, it's like that, they understood that true knowledge isn't just about accumulating facts. It's about kind of like applying those insights
Right.
to transform yourself and the world around you.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
Let's dive into some specifics, though. Let's talk about the Eleusinian mysteries, because, he made them sound like the Coachella of the ancient world, super popular, shrouded in secrecy, and promising like a life-changing experience.
It was definitely a big deal. I
Okay.
mean, they were held every 5 years in Eleusis, Greece, and people came from all walks of life.
Wow.
All seeking this deeper understanding of life and death, the mysteries.
And he talks about these two gates, right?
Yeah.
These two gates that initiates would have to pass through, and one's leading down into darkness, and one's leading up towards light. What was the symbolism behind that?
Yeah, it represents that journey of the soul, that descent into the material world at birth, and then the eventual ascent toward spiritual enlightenment.
Okay.
So it's like the symbolic death and rebirth. Right, so it's like a process of shedding old identities and embracing a higher truth.
So it's a ritualized hero's journey in a way, right? Like you face your fears, you confront the unknown, and you emerge transformed.
Yeah.
I like it. So like, how did they convey this knowledge, though? Were there lectures, textbooks, ancient PowerPoint presentations?
The specifics of what happened in there were kept secret.
Oh, gross.
But we know they used a combination of rituals, symbolism, and dramatic performances
Okay.
to create this, like, really immersive experience.
Okay.
So
I'm thinking like actors and toga-clad actors reenacting myths and chanting hymns, maybe even using special effects to create a truly, inspiring spectacle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds more like a psychedelic rock concert than a philosophy lecture.
I think you're right on the money with that.
I like it. Let's move on to another figure, though, who kind of bridges the gap between myth and philosophy,
Okay.
and that's Orpheus.
Yeah.
Now, he's best known for his tragic love story, but Hall sees something much deeper in this myth, right?
Right. I mean, for Hall, Orpheus isn't just a, heartbroken musician. He's this allegory for the human search for lost truth.
Okay.
He represents that fragmentation of wisdom, the scattering of those ancient teachings that once held the key to a harmonious existence,
Yeah.
and his descent into the underworld to rescue Eurydice that symbolizes our own efforts to reclaim those lost fragments
Right.
and restore wholeness to our lives.
I like that. That's a powerful image. It's like we're all on this quest to, piece together the puzzle of existence. And we're searching for those missing pieces that will help us make sense of it all.
Right.
What about, like, that ultimate symbol of lost knowledge, Atlantis? Hall delves into Plato's account of this vanished civilization.
Yes.
And it kind of raises questions about the origins of ancient wisdom.
absolutely. The story of Atlantis has captivated imaginations for centuries.
Oh, yeah.
And Hall really uses it to explore this idea that much of our knowledge may have originated from a civilization
Okay.
that's, been lost to time.
I'm with you.
And he suggests that everything, philosophy, mathematics to architecture and astronomy may have roots in Atlantean wisdom.
So you're telling me that the pyramids, the zodiac, maybe even the secret handshake
Maybe.
could have all originated in Atlantis?
It's possible.
That's a lot to process.
It is.
Well, he does mention some specific Atlantean symbols, right?
Yeah, he does.
What are those?
Well, he links the cross and the serpent, both powerful symbols, to Atlantis. And he even goes so far as to describe a grand pyramidal temple in this, city of the Golden Gates.
Oh, wow.
So maybe that's like the epicenter of Atlantean wisdom before it was all, swallowed by the sea.
Okay, now we're getting into, like, Indiana Jones territory.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yes. Secret temples, lost civilizations, ancient wisdom hidden beneath the waves. Yeah, it's almost like an action-adventure movie.
It is.
But before we get too carried away, let's explore another mystery school
Okay.
that he mentions. And these are the Kabiric Mysteries of Samothrace. What do we actually know about these guys other than the fact that they were super secretive?
Yeah, I mean, even in ancient times, the Kabiric mysteries were shrouded in secrecy.
Right.
We know they were highly respected. I mean, Herodotus himself said that they influenced Greek thought, especially around Hermes, the messenger god.
Yeah.
But the details of their rituals, they remain elusive. They have this almost mythical status because of that.
So how do we even know that they exist? I mean, did they leave behind cryptic symbols, ancient scrolls, a secret clubhouse with a no trespassing sign?
Well, we get glimpses from various sources.
Okay.
Clement of Alexandria, who is this early Christian writer,
Yeah.
he mentions a very strange prohibition against parsley in their rituals.
Oh, really?
It was believed to have, sprung from the blood of a murdered god.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's a little detail that hints at those, darker, more mysterious aspects of these ancient practices.
So equal parts intriguing and disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Murdered gods, secret rituals, forbidden parsley.
Right.
Like, a historical thriller novel waiting to be written.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
But let's shift gears a little bit to a figure who is a bit more philosophical.
Okay.
And that is Hermes Trismegistus.
Oh, yes.
Now, this guy isn't just a Greek god, he's also a legendary author.
That's right.
Correct.
Yeah. Hermes Trismegistus is actually credited with writing these Hermetic texts,
Right.
which are this blend of Egyptian and Greek wisdom that influenced, alchemists, philosophers, mystics for centuries.
Right.
And Hall describes a really fascinating encounter where Hermes meets Pormundras, the mind of the universe, in the form of a terrifying dragon.
Oh, wow. Okay, a dragon, like a fire-breathing Game of Thrones style dragon.
It was like a scary, scary dragon.
Okay, that's a pretty intense philosophy lesson.
It is.
What's the symbolism behind, like, this mythical beast?
Well, it's all about transcendence.
Oh.
Right. So the dragon represents that universal life force.
Yeah.
And that encounter symbolizes Hermes overcoming his own fears,
Right.
his own limitations, to access this higher level of understanding.
I'm with you.
And Hall really emphasizes the symbolism of light and darkness in this story.
Yeah.
Right? The light representing that spiritual universe, darkness representing the material world.
So it's kind of like moving beyond the limitations of our senses, our fears, and our preconceived notions to perceive a deeper reality.
Yes, exactly.
I like that. That kind of brings us to another symbol that's often shrouded in darkness and misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And that's the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Yeah, the Great Pyramid.
Most people just think tomb. But Hall sees it as something much more profound, right?
Yeah, he does.
So he kind of challenges that traditional interpretation, right? Suggesting that the pyramid's true purpose was symbolic and not just functional.
Right.
What exactly did it symbolize, though? Was it just like a giant monument to ego, or was there a deeper meaning encoded in its structure?
Well, for Hall, the pyramid is this emblem of resurrection and regeneration.
Okay.
A representation of the soul's ascent towards spiritual enlightenment.
Gotcha.
It's a symbol of transformation, this reminder that we're not just physical beings, right? We're spiritual beings on a journey toward a higher state of consciousness.
And what about the Sphinx?
The Sphinx.
That enigmatic creature guarding the pyramid that has to play a role in this cosmic symbolism, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the Sphinx was known as Hu to the ancient Egyptians.
Okay.
And it was a symbol of divine power and wisdom.
Right.
So it represents the integration of the human and the divine,
Right.
the physical and the spiritual. And its placement, right at the entrance to the pyramid,
Yeah.
it suggests that we must confront and integrate these dualities within ourselves before we can access, the higher realms of knowledge.
Okay, so, wow. We're talking about a whole system of symbolism embedded in these ancient structures.
Mm-hmm.
A language of, shapes and proportions and mythical figures designed to convey these profound truths about the universe and the human journey.
Yes.
So, how do we even begin to decipher this language? Is there a Rosetta Stone for understanding these ancient symbols?
Well, the key lies in understanding the principles of analogy and correspondence.
Good.
The ancients believed that everything in the universe was interconnected,
Right.
and they used symbols to represent those connections.
Yeah.
So by studying the relationships between those different symbols, we can start to unlock their deeper meaning.
Okay, so it's like a giant cosmic puzzle, and the symbols are the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can understand how they fit together, we can start to see the bigger picture.
Yep.
I like it. Well, let's dive into another piece of that puzzle.
Right.
The story of Osiris, Isis, and Typhon.
Oh, yes.
This classic tale of betrayal, murder, and resurrection.
Right.
What's the hidden wisdom behind this divine drama?
Well, Osiris, he represents the fragmentation of spiritual truth.
Okay.
His body being dismembered symbolizes those truths being scattered throughout the material world.
Right.
And Isis, his devoted wife, she represents the force that seeks to gather those fragments and restore wholeness.
Oh, I like that. So she's like a cosmic detective, piecing together the clues to rediscover those essential truths.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then Hall throws in this intriguing detail about the headdresses worn by the Egyptian gods.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
the significance of those?
I love this because it's where ancient wisdom intersects with modern understanding.
Okay.
So those elaborate headdresses, they actually represent the auric bodies,
Okay.
the subtle energy fields that surround every living being. And it's fascinating to see how modern science is rediscovering these concepts
Right.
through things like Kirlian photography, showing that those ancient mystics, they were onto something really profound.
So we were kind of like tapping into a level of reality that we're just beginning to understand.
Yeah.
This realm of energy and vibration and interconnectedness that goes beyond the physical world.
Right.
Well, let's turn our attention to the heavens for a second.
Okay.
We're diving into the zodiac.
Yeah.
What's the symbolic significance beyond just horoscopes and personality types?
Well, for the ancients, the zodiac was a map of both the universe and the human soul.
Okay.
They saw it as a blueprint for the unfolding of these cosmic cycles.
Yeah.
And the evolution of consciousness. And Hall specifically focuses on Leo, the soul house of the sun,
Right.
and connects it to the return of light,
Okay.
the awakening of spiritual awareness, and the dawn of this new age, the Aquarian age.
Okay, so Leo is like the cosmic Lion King, kind of heralding a new era of enlightenment.
Yes, exactly.
How does that tie into all these secret societies and mystery schools, though? Were they ancient astrologers plotting their moves based on the stars?
Well, I think the extent of their astrological knowledge is debatable,
Okay.
but they certainly understood the interconnectedness of the cosmos and human life.
Right.
And this brings us to another fascinating artifact that Hall mentions, the Table of Isis.
The Table of Isis. Okay, it sounds like a mystical board game.
It kind of is.
What is this ancient relic all about?
It's like a key to unlock ancient theology.
Okay.
It's a complex tableau filled with symbols and figures connecting Chaldean, Egyptian, and Greek ideas.
Oh, wow.
So it's this visual representation of the universe and humanity's place within it.
Oh, okay.
And Hall describes its 3 panels, the top representing the celestial realm, the middle representing the spiritual nature of humanity,
Okay.
and then the bottom depicting the material world.
So it's kind of like a map of both the cosmos and the human being.
Yes.
Like the macrocosm and the microcosm all rolled into one.
Exactly. And Hall really points out the significance of the number 21,
Yeah.
which appears in the central panel.
Okay.
And connects it to the sun's 3 great powers and their 7 attributes.
Wow.
So it's all about understanding the interplay between the divine and the human,
Right.
the celestial and the terrestrial, and how these forces shape our lives and our understanding of reality.
I'm starting to see how, these ancient symbols and myths, they weren't just stories.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of sophisticated systems of knowledge.
Yeah.
Designed to convey these profound truths about the universe and the human experience.
Right.
I like it. Let's move on to another intriguing topic, everlasting lamps.
Everlasting lamps, yeah.
Were these just like ancient Egyptian nightlights, or was there something more to it?
I mean, Hall describes the practice of placing, lit lamps in tombs, possibly as like offerings to the god of death or, symbolic guides for the deceased's journey.
Right.
But he raises this really interesting possibility that ancient priests actually possessed the knowledge to create lamps that burned for incredibly long periods, perhaps even indefinitely.
So like ancient Egyptian light bulbs.
Yeah, maybe.
What kind of fuel could possibly burn for centuries?
Well, that's the mystery.
Right.
Hall doesn't reveal the secret formula if there ever was one.
Right.
But it leaves us wondering about that lost knowledge of ancient chemistry.
Yeah.
And the possibility that they, mastered techniques that we've yet to rediscover.
So maybe these lamps weren't just about illumination, but about symbolizing, like the eternal flame of consciousness, the undying spirit that transcends the limitations of the physical body.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to look at it.
I like it. And let's not forget about those enigmatic oracles, those places where the divine spoke directly to mortals.
Yeah.
He mentions a few famous examples, Delphi and Dodona. What made these places so special?
Well, they were seen as portals to the divine, right? The places where the veil between the human and the supernatural was really thin.
Right.
And Delphi is, of course, famous for the Pythia, the priestess who would utter prophecies from this, sacred cave.
Yeah.
And Hall suggests that, the fumes emanating from this cave might have actually played a role in inducing altered states of consciousness.
Oh, okay.
Right, allowing the Pythia to access this higher level of awareness.
So ancient Greek prophecies were fueled by hallucinogenic fumes.
Maybe it's possible.
Okay, that's definitely not how they teach it in Sunday school.
No, not at all.
What about Dodona, though? Were they, getting their divine messages from enchanted oak trees or something?
Well, Dodona was a different vibe.
Okay.
Their oracles involved talking trees, and specifically oaks.
Oh, wow.
That uttered prophecies in the voice of Zeus.
Okay.
And Hall also mentions a dove that, delivered divine messages, adding to this mystical atmosphere of the place. And it seems that the ancients were just tuned into the natural world in ways that we've largely forgotten.
Right. So it's almost like, they understood that wisdom wasn't just found in books or in temples, but could also be accessed through nature, through direct communion with the earth and its creatures.
I think you're right.
I like that.
Yeah.
Let's dive into another system of thought, though.
Okay.
That might kind of unlock some of these mysteries, and that's Pythagorean numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Was this just ancient math class?
Mm-hmm.
Or was there something more to it?
Well, Pythagoras believed that numbers weren't just these abstract concepts.
Right.
They were the fundamental building blocks of reality.
Okay.
The language of the universe itself.
Gotcha.
And he introduced this idea of the monad, the all-encompassing one from which all things emanate.
So if the universe is like a giant math equation, what does the monad represent?
Right.
Was it like the source code, the cosmic seed from which everything else grows?
Exactly. I mean, the monad represents that unity behind all diversity, that underlying principle that connects all things. And from this monad, all the other numbers emerge.
Yeah.
Each with its own symbolic meaning and significance.
Okay, so we're not just talking about basic arithmetic here. We're talking about this system of symbolism where numbers actually represent cosmic principles, spiritual forces, the underlying structure of reality.
Yes.
So how did they apply this knowledge, though? I mean, were they just ancient mathematicians trying to calculate the meaning of life?
I mean, maybe they were, but really they saw these numbers as a key to understanding both the universe and the human soul.
Okay.
And they believed that by studying those numerical relationships and patterns, they could gain insights into the harmony and order of the cosmos and then apply those principles to their own lives.
So it's kind of again, a blend of science and philosophy and spirituality, but expressed through this language of numbers.
Exactly.
It's fascinating to see how they integrated these different areas of knowledge into this unified system of understanding.
It is. And that integrated approach to knowledge is something, we can learn from today.
Yeah.
We tend to, in our modern world, compartmentalize knowledge, right? So we have science over here, spirituality over here.
Right. Totally separate.
Yeah. Art over here, philosophy over there.
Yeah.
But the ancients understood that all knowledge is interconnected
Right.
And by embracing that holistic perspective, we can actually gain a much richer and more meaningful understanding of ourselves and the universe.
Yeah, it's like we've lost sight of the forest for the trees,
Yeah.
focusing on those individual branches of knowledge without seeing like the interconnectedness of the whole.
Right.
So like, how do we reclaim that holistic perspective though?
Mm-hmm.
Is it about studying ancient texts, joining secret societies, or maybe enrolling in a Pythagorean math class?
I mean, those might help, but I think it really starts with a shift in mindset.
Okay.
A willingness to see those connections between seemingly disparate areas of knowledge.
Okay.
So, cultivating curiosity,
Yeah.
asking questions,
Yeah.
and being open to these new ways of understanding the world.
So like less rote memorization and more like creative exploration.
Exactly.
Okay. I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
Let's dive into another system of knowledge, though, that's often shrouded in mystery,
Okay.
and that is the Qabbala.
Oh, the Qabbala, yes.
So is it just ancient Jewish mysticism, or is there something more to it?
Well, the Qabbala is a complex and multifaceted system.
Yeah.
But really, at its core, it's about understanding the nature of God and creation.
Yeah.
And Hall focuses on the Sefer Yetzirah, which is this foundational text
Yeah.
that describes the creation of the universe through 32 paths of wisdom, which
Yeah.
are the 10 Sephiroth and the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
Okay, so it's like a cosmic blueprint written in the language of, like, Hebrew mysticism.
It is.
What are the Sephiroth, though? How do they connect to, like, the bigger picture?
Well, the Sephiroth are 10 emanations of divine energy,
Okay.
and they're often depicted as this, tree of life.
Oh, right.
Each Sephira represents a specific aspect of God and creation,
Okay.
and their interconnectedness reveals the flow of divine energy throughout the universe.
So we're not just talking about a religious system. We're talking about, like, a map of the universe, a guide to understanding the nature of reality and the evolution of consciousness.
Yes.
I like it. What about another, famous biblical figure, Adam and Eve?
Oh, Adam and Eve.
Surely there's more to their story than, just meets the eye.
Right, and Hall challenges that literal interpretation of the Adam and Eve story.
Okay.
He suggests that it's a cosmic allegory,
Right.
not a historical event,
Gotcha.
and he points out the plural nature of the Hebrew word Elohim,
Right.
which is often translated as God. Yeah.
And he also highlights the fact that Adam was initially androgynous,
Right.
representing the unity of the masculine and feminine principles before they were separated.
So we're talking about a symbolic representation of the descent of consciousness into the material world.
Yeah.
What's the deeper meaning behind the separation of the sexes?
Well, it's about that fragmentation of wholeness,
Yeah.
that division of unity into duality.
Okay.
It's not about, blaming Adam and Eve for this literal fall from grace,
Right.
but about understanding the challenges and opportunities that come with experiencing life in a dualistic reality.
Right. So it's like this cosmic game of hide and seek in a way.
Yeah.
Where we're separated from our true nature
Mm.
and tasked with finding our way back to wholeness, to unity, to that original state of androgynous perfection.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
I like it. Well, what about those, mysterious playing cards, the tarot?
Oh, the tarot.
Are we going full-on fortune teller here?
Well, while the tarot is often associated with divination.
Hall sees it as a symbolic system that reflects those archetypes of human experience and the journey of the soul.
Oh, okay.
And he suggests that the tarot might actually be a remnant of Hermes Trismegistus's sacred book.
Oh, really?
Containing hidden wisdom that's been preserved throughout the ages.
So these cards aren't just for predicting the future. They're like ancient Egyptian flashcards for spiritual wisdom.
I love that, yeah.
Okay, so what's the symbolism behind, like, the different cards?
Well, you've got the major arcana,
Yeah.
right, with those really dramatic images.
Yeah.
Those represent those archetypal figures and universal experiences.
Ah.
And then you've got the minor arcana,
Okay.
which is divided into the 4 suits.
Right.
And they're connected to the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water,
Right.
representing different aspects of human nature and the material world.
So it's a complex system of, like, correspondences that you can use to gain insights into the workings of both the individual psyche and the universe as a whole. Okay, we've got symbolism and alchemy and secret societies and mystical playing cards. My head is spinning.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. What other treasures are buried in these secret teachings?
Well, let's explore the tabernacle,
Okay.
that portable sanctuary described in the Bible.
Yeah.
Hall delves into its dimensions, the layout,
Okay.
the symbolic meanings of the high priest's vestments, revealing a microcosm of the universe.
So we're not just talking about an ancient tent here. We're talking about like a blueprint for the cosmos. Okay. How does that work?
Well, the tabernacle's design reflects the structure of the universe.
Okay.
So the holy place represents the material world,
Okay.
and the Holy of Holies symbolizes that divine realm.
Right.
And the high priest's vestments,
Yeah.
they have this really elaborate symbolism representing those different elements, the celestial bodies and the spiritual forces that, govern the universe.
Okay. So I'm starting to see how even seemingly mundane objects can be imbued with like this spiritual meaning. How everything in the universe can be seen as a reflection of this deeper reality.
Right.
But what about those like mysterious Rosicrucians?
Oh, Rosicrucians.
They're like the ultimate secret society, shrouded in myth and legend.
Absolutely.
What do we know about them?
Yeah, well, Hall acknowledges the mystery surrounding their origins, right? And he presents all these different theories about their history, but he focuses on the Fama Fraternitatis.
Okay.
It's just this text that tells the story of Christian Rosicrucians, the legendary founder of the order.
Christian Rosicrucians?
Yeah.
Okay. That is a name that screams secret society.
Right.
So what's the story behind this mysterious figure?
Well, he is described as...
Feels like we've just scratched the surface of these secret teachings, and already my mind is buzzing with connections and insights, but I'm ready for more. Where do we go from here?
What really strikes me is how these diverse traditions from ancient Egypt to, Native American lore, they all seem to converge on certain, core principles. It's as if they're tapping into, a shared wellspring of wisdom,
Right. It's like they're all singing from the same cosmic hymnal, maybe using different melodies, but conveying a similar message about the nature of reality and the human spirit.
Exactly. And it's that universality that makes these teachings so enduring, so relevant. Even in our, modern tech-driven world, they speak to something deep within us.
Yeah.
A yearning for meaning, for connection, for something that, transcends the everyday.
It's a reminder that we're not just like these isolated individuals, but we're part of something much grander. Like a cosmic tapestry woven from these threads of ancient wisdom and shared human experience.
Exactly. And perhaps by studying those threads, by understanding that language of symbolism and myth, we can start to see the pattern, the interconnectedness of all things.
Okay, I'm ready to pull on some more threads. What other hidden connections does Hall reveal in his exploration of these secret societies and this ancient wisdom?
Well, let's delve into a concept that might seem kind of surprising, the idea that Jesus's ministry may have been much longer than traditionally believed.
Wait, longer than 33 years?
Yes.
That's a pretty radical departure from the standard biblical narrative. So what's the basis for this claim?
Well, Hall cites the writings of Irenaeus,
who
was this early Christian theologian, and he suggested that, the disciples themselves attested to Jesus living to an advanced age.
Wow, okay.
And when you consider, the vast amount of knowledge and wisdom that's attributed to Jesus, a longer ministry might make more sense.
It definitely challenges us to, kind of think outside the box, to question those, ingrained narratives that we often just accept without scrutiny. And speaking of challenging assumptions, Hall also highlights these parallels between Jesus and Hiram Abiff.
Oh, yes.
That central figure in Masonic legend.
Right. And both figures are associated with, betrayal, death, and resurrection, symbolizing, that cyclical nature of life.
Yeah.
The triumph of spirit over matter.
Right. And when you consider the connections between Freemasonry and the ancient mysteries, these parallels become even more intriguing.
They do.
It's like those ancient mystery schools were whispering their secrets across the centuries.
Right.
Their teachings finding new expression in these different forms, these different traditions. It's almost as if wisdom itself is like a living, evolving force, constantly adapting to new contexts, but remaining true to these core principles.
I love that image of wisdom as a living force.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's that ability to adapt, to transcend cultural boundaries that makes these teachings so powerful. They speak to this universal human experience. You know, the search for meaning, the desire for transformation,
Right.
that longing for a connection with something, greater than ourselves.
It's like we're all on this quest for, like that lost word,
Mm-hmm.
that key that unlocks the mysteries of the universe and reveals our true potential.
Mm-hmm.
But where do we find that key? Is it hidden in ancient texts, whispered in secret rituals,
Right.
or encoded in the very fabric of reality?
It's probably all of the above.
Yeah, right?
Hall's Secret Teachings, it offers this roadmap, a guide to those many paths
Right.
that have been forged by seekers throughout history. But the real journey is an inner one.
Right.
It's a process of self-discovery and spiritual awakening.
So it's not just about accumulating knowledge. It's about applying that knowledge to our own lives, but transforming ourselves from the inside out.
Exactly. And that might be, that greatest secret of all, the power to change ourselves.
Right.
To awaken to our true potential, it lies within each of us.
Right.
It's not something we find. It's something we cultivate, we nurture,
Yeah.
and ultimately, express in the world.
I like it. Okay, so let's shift gears for a bit.
Okay.
And explore a theme that runs through, a lot of these traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the symbolism of the cross.
Ah, the cross.
So, for Christians, it represents the sacrifice of Jesus
Right.
and the promise of salvation. But Hall reminds us that its symbolism, predates Christianity,
It does.
appearing in various cultures throughout history.
Absolutely.
So the cross was this universal symbol long before it became associated with, Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of those earlier meanings?
Well, in a lot of cultures, it represented the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water.
Oh.
Symbolizing, those fundamental building blocks of the material world.
Yeah.
It was also seen as this representation of the equinoxes and the solstices,
Okay.
marking those turning points of the year and that cyclical nature of time.
Okay. So we have elements, celestial cycles,
Mm-hmm.
and then, you add in the Christian concept of sacrifice and redemption.
Right.
It's quite a potent blend of symbolism. You know.
Yes.
How does this tie in with this, the concept of spiritual transformation that we've been discussing, though?
Well, the cross, in many ways, symbolizes that intersection
Okay.
of the human and the divine,
Mhm.
the material and the spiritual. It represents the challenges we face,
Yeah.
the burdens we carry, the sacrifices we make,
Right.
but also the potential for growth and transcendence.
Yeah, it's like a reminder that through those challenges,
Mm.
those moments of darkness and sacrifice,
Yeah.
we can ultimately emerge, transformed,
Right.
stronger and more aligned with our true selves.
Exactly.
I like that. And that brings us to another powerful symbol
Mm-hmm.
that's often paired with the cross.
Yes.
And that's the serpent.
The
Now, serpents, they usually get a bad rap,
yeah.
thanks to that whole Garden of Eden incident.
Right.
But Hall seems to present a more nuanced perspective.
Yeah, he does.
Right.
I mean, the serpent, despite its negative connotations,
Yeah.
in some traditions,
Right.
has long been a symbol of wisdom, healing, and transformation.
Okay.
It represents that primal life force, that kundalini energy
Okay.
that, lies coiled at the base of the spine,
Right.
waiting to be awakened.
So it's not about fearing the serpent.
Right.
It's about understanding its power
Mm-hmm.
and harnessing its energy for our own spiritual evolution.
Exactly. The serpent, like the cross, challenges us to confront our shadows,
Yeah.
to shed old skins,
Right.
and to emerge renewed.
Right.
And in that process, we discover, a deeper wisdom, a more profound understanding of ourselves
Right.
and the universe.
Like a shedding of illusions.
Mhm.
Peeling back the layers to reveal the truth that lies
Yeah.
hidden beneath.
I like that.
Well, speaking of hidden truth,
Okay.
let's dive into another fascinating topic that Hall explores,
Yeah.
and that's the role of cryptograms in symbolic philosophy.
Oh, yeah.
Now, cryptograms, or ciphers, they've long been used to conceal information.
Right.
But Hall suggests that they also played a role in transmitting philosophical and spiritual teachings,
Mm.
particularly within, secret societies like the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. It
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
They're trying to protect their knowledge.
Right.
They want to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
Okay, so we're talking about coded messages,
Mm-hmm.
hidden symbols,
Right.
and a secret language of wisdom that only initiates could understand.
Exactly.
Okay, like a real-life Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
So what kind of information might have been concealed in these cryptograms?
It could have been anything, really. From alchemical formulas, philosophical treatises, instructions for spiritual practices.
Wow.
The idea was to protect this knowledge
Right.
from those who weren't ready for it.
Right.
Ensuring it was revealed only to those who had proven themselves worthy.
It's like a safeguard against misuse in a way, right? Making sure that this powerful knowledge, didn't fall into the wrong hands.
All right.
But like, how did they create these cryptograms though?
Well, they were incredibly ingenious
Yeah.
and employed all sorts of methods.
Okay.
Hall describes using different fonts of type,
Okay.
and sealing messages and watermarks, even embedding ciphers in mathematical equations.
Wow.
It was like a complex and elaborate system designed to both, protect their secrets,
Right.
but also leave this trail of breadcrumbs for
Right.
those who knew how to follow them.
I'm seriously impressed by like the level of like ingenuity and dedication that was involved in like preserving this knowledge. It's like they were playing this like cosmic game of hide and seek, challenging future generations to uncover their hidden wisdom.
Right.
I like it. What about like one of the most famous cryptograms of all, the biliteral cipher,
Oh, yeah.
described by Sir Francis Bacon?
Well, the biliteral cipher is a fascinating example.
Yeah.
It involves using two different but very subtly different styles of type
Okay.
to encode messages.
Oh, wow.
And the variations are so slight,
Yeah.
they're almost undetectable to the untrained eye.
Wow.
And, if Bacon was connected to the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons, as Hall suggests,
Yeah.
this cipher might have been a tool for transmitting their secret teachings.
Whoa. So we're talking about like a secret code hidden in plain sight, potentially embedded within some of like the most famous works of literature.
Right.
Oh man, talk about a literary treasure hunt.
It is.
Okay, so let's shift gears for a moment and explore a theme that's kind of woven throughout, secret teachings.
Yeah.
And that is the concept of cyclical time.
Oh, yeah.
The ancients understood that time wasn't linear, but cyclical.
Right.
This never-ending dance of like creation, destruction, and renewal.
Right. They saw it reflected in the seasons,
Wow.
the phases of the moon, the movements of the stars, and that understanding really informed their worldview, their spiritual practices, and even their approach to life and death.
So it's not about fearing the end, but embracing the cycle, understanding that death is simply a transition to a new beginning.
Exactly. Death wasn't seen as an ending, but as a transformation,
Right.
a return to the source from which all things emanate.
Right.
And the cyclical view, it really infused their lives with purpose and meaning,
Yeah.
reminding them that even in darkness, light would eventually return.
Yeah, it's a comforting thought, especially in times of like uncertainty and change.
Right.
Like it's this reminder that even when things fall apart, there's this deeper order at play, this cosmic dance that continues,
Right.
regardless of our like individual struggles.
Yeah.
But like, how did the ancients express this understanding of cyclical time?
Well, you see it in those myths of death and resurrection, Osiris, Jesus, Hiram Abiff, all symbolizing, that cyclical nature of life, the triumph of spirit over matter.
Yeah.
And it's there in the imagery of the serpent shedding its skin to emerge renewed, and it's woven into the, fabric of the zodiac.
Right.
It's 12 signs representing that ever-turning wheel of time.
Yeah. It's like they were encoding this wisdom into the very language of symbolism, creating this like visual and narrative reminder of that eternal cycle of birth, death, and rebirth.
Right.
Okay, let's turn our attention to another like fascinating topic that Hall explores.
Okay.
The role of music in transmitting spiritual knowledge. So, the ancients understood the power of music to move the soul, to elevate consciousness, to connect us with the divine.
Yeah, think about the myth of Orpheus.
Right.
His music, it charmed even the gods of the underworld.
Right.
And there's the Pythagorean concept of the music of the spheres.
Right.
That harmonious symphony created by the movements of the celestial bodies.
So music wasn't just entertainment for them.
No.
It was about using like sound and vibration to align with the cosmic harmony, to access like deeper states of awareness.
Yeah, music was a sacred art, a tool for spiritual transformation, and a
Yes.
means of, communicating with the divine.
Right.
And you see this understanding present in a lot of mystical traditions today,
Right.
from chanting mantras to sound healing.
Okay, so now I'm picturing like those ancient mystery schools having like a cosmic DJ, spinning tracks that transport initiates to higher realms of consciousness. That's like the ultimate rave. But instead of like, glow sticks and lasers, they're using, ancient instruments
Right.
and sacred chants to create this like atmosphere of, transcendence.
What a fantastic image.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really speaks to the power of music to
Right.
move us, connect us, and awaken something, really profound within.
Right.
It's a reminder that we're not just physical beings.
Yeah.
We're vibrational beings.
Yeah.
Resonating with the frequencies of the universe.
Yeah, I can feel the cosmic vibes.
I know, right?
Let's explore something a bit more like grounded though for a sec.
Okay.
And that's the symbolism of trees.
Ah, trees, yes.
Trees have always held this like sacred place in human cultures, symbolizing growth and strength and wisdom and interconnectedness.
Right, you see it in the tree of life imagery.
Yeah.
That appears, in so many different mystical traditions.
Yeah.
From the Qabbala to ancient Norse mythology.
Right. So it's not just about like their physical presence in the natural world.
Right. It's about what they represent. Right. Like this connection to something greater than ourselves, like a symbol of the life force that flows through all things. Yeah, trees were seen as these like bridges between the heavens and the earth.
Yeah.
Their roots reaching down into the underworld,
Yeah.
their branches stretching up towards the sky,
Yeah.
representing the axis mundi,
Yeah.
the central point around which the universe revolves.
Wow. So they were like living antennas in a way, right?
Yeah.
Connecting us to both like the earthly and the celestial realms. And you mentioned, the talking trees of Dodona,
Right.
those oracles that, uttered prophecies.
Yeah.
Do you think that the ancients were really communicating with trees?
I mean, it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
A lot of cultures believed in nature spirits,
Right.
and trees with their, long lifespans, their deep roots,
Right.
were often seen as like these repositories of wisdom in ancient knowledge.
Yeah.
So whether through, direct communication,
Yeah.
symbolic interpretation, I think trees offered a way to access that wisdom and
Yeah.
receive guidance from the natural world.
Yeah. It's like this reminder that wisdom isn't, confined to books or just human teachings, but it's also embedded in like the natural world, if we know how to listen.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
And explore a topic that, that might seem a bit controversial. The idea that Muhammad, the founder of Islam, might have been influenced by earlier mystical traditions.
Well, yeah, Hall suggests that Muhammad's teachings, while unique,
Right.
might have incorporated elements from these earlier wisdom traditions,
Right.
particularly those found, in the Middle East.
Okay.
And he points to the symbolism of the Kaaba,
Okay.
that sacred cube in Mecca,
Yeah.
which actually predates Islam
Wow. Okay.
and may have been like a site of pilgrimage
Oh, wow.
for earlier cultures.
Okay, so we're talking about kind of like a blending of ancient wisdom and new revelation.
Yeah.
Creating, like a unique and powerful spiritual tradition.
Right.
Okay, what are some of the other connections that he highlights?
Well, he points out that, the early Muslims were renowned
Yeah.
for their contributions to science,
Right.
mathematics, philosophy,
Yeah.
suggesting that maybe they inherited that intellectual legacy from earlier civilizations. And he also mentions the Sufis,
Yeah.
which is this mystical branch of Islam
Right.
that emphasize spiritual experience and inner transformation,
Okay.
which, aligns with those themes of self-discovery and enlightenment found in, so many mystical traditions.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even within like, established religions,
Right.
there are often these like, mystical undercurrents, esoteric teachings
Right.
that point to a deeper, more experiential understanding of like the divine.
Right.
Okay, well, let's turn our attention to a figure who seems to like embody this blend of mysticism and worldly accomplishment, and that is the Comte de Saint-Germain.
Ah, Saint Germain.
He was an enigma.
Yeah.
He was a man of many talents and mysterious origins.
Right. There was this master of languages.
Right.
A skilled musician
Yeah.
and an accomplished alchemist.
Okay, so he was like a real-life superhero
Yeah.
with, supernatural abilities and a secret identity.
And a secret identity, yeah.
Okay, so what's the connection between, Saint Germain and, like, the secret societies that Hull is exploring?
Well, Saint Germain was rumored to be a member of various secret societies, including the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians.
Right.
And he was said to, have this really profound understanding of ancient wisdom and to be working towards like a grand plan for the enlightenment of humanity.
So he was like a secret agent for good,
Mm-hmm.
using his knowledge and influence to, like, guide humanity towards a more enlightened future.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
That's pretty awesome. What about those claims of immortality, though?
Yeah.
Was Saint Germain really ageless, or was that just like part of his mystique?
I mean, the stories of his agelessness are really intriguing. He was said to appear at various points in history,
Right.
looking exactly the same, defying, the normal constraints of time.
Wow.
So whether it was through, alchemical means or some other form of like spiritual mastery,
Yeah.
it seems like Saint Germain had this like unique ability to transcend those limitations of the physical body.
Okay, that definitely puts him in the running for, like, the coolest historical figure ever.
Yeah.
Master of science, art, language, member of secret societies, possibly immortal. It's like he stepped out of, like, a fantasy novel.
He did.
Well, what can we learn from, like, Saint Germain's example, though?
Yeah.
It's immortality, something that, that we should aspire to.
Well, perhaps immortality isn't about like living forever
Right.
in the physical body,
Okay.
but about achieving a state of consciousness that transcends those limitations of time and space.
Gotcha.
Right? And Saint Germain's example suggests that it is possible to access a deeper level of being,
Right.
a realm where those boundaries of the physical world no longer apply.
Yeah, it's a reminder that, like, there's more to reality
Mm-hmm.
than meets the eye.
Right.
And there are these hidden dimensions waiting to be explored if we just, like,
If we dare to venture
dare to venture beyond.
beyond the confines of the ordinary.
Yeah, I like it. But how do we, like, embark on such a journey?
Mm-hmm.
Is it about joining secret societies, decoding ancient texts, mastering alchemical formulas?
I mean, the path to spiritual awakening, it's a personal one.
Okay.
But the teachings of these ancient traditions can offer really valuable guidance.
Okay.
They point towards self-discovery, inner transformation, and a connection with something greater than ourselves.
So it's not about finding, like, a one-size-fits-all solution. It's
Yeah.
about kind of embarking on this journey of self-exploration,
Mm-hmm.
drawing inspiration from those who've walked the path before us,
Yeah.
but ultimately, forging our own unique way forward.
Exactly. And that's perhaps, the greatest legacy of these secret teachings.
Yeah.
The reminder that the power to transform ourselves, to awaken to our true potential, it lies within each of us.
Right.
It's not something we find. It's something we cultivate, we nurture, and ultimately, express in the world.
Okay, so I'm feeling like this surge of, like, cosmic empowerment.
Good.
It's like we've been given this glimpse behind the curtain, shown the machinery of the universe, and offered the chance to become co-creators of our own destinies.
That's a great way to look at it.
But let's shift gears for a bit
Okay.
and explore a theme that's been kind of, like, on my mind. Hull's book is filled with, like, fascinating stories and intriguing characters, but he also delves into some, like, pretty dense philosophical concepts.
Right.
So, like, how do we make sense of all this information without getting lost in the weeds?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Secret Teachings can be a challenging read,
Yeah.
but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Right.
And I'd suggest approaching it kind of like a treasure map, focusing on the themes and symbols
Right.
that resonate with you.
Yeah.
Don't get, too bogged down in the details.
Right.
Allow yourself to be guided by your intuition, by your own inner compass.
So it's less about, like, memorizing facts
Mhm.
and more about, like, allowing the teachings to spark something within us,
Yeah.
to ignite, like, our own inner wisdom.
Exactly. Think of it as a conversation with the ancients,
Okay.
a dialogue across time and cultures.
Yeah.
Let their wisdom inform your own understanding.
Right.
But don't be afraid to question,
Yeah.
to interpret, Yeah.
and to make the teachings your own.
Okay, so it's like we're not just like passive recipients of information.
Right.
We're like active participants in the unfolding of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just reading a book. We're engaging in a conversation, a dance of ideas
Yes.
that can lead to, profound insights and transformative experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and remember, this is just the glimpse into this vast and complex world of like ancient wisdom. There's so much more to explore, so many paths to discover. So before we move on to the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I have to ask, what is like one key takeaway? Like one nugget of wisdom that you think, listeners should hold on to from our exploration of, these secret teachings?
I think, for me, it's that realization that wisdom isn't something external.
Right.
That we acquire from books or gurus or whatever.
Yeah. But it's something that's already present within us.
Okay.
These ancient traditions with their symbols and their myths and their rituals, they're simply tools to help us access that inner wisdom, to awaken to our true potential.
So it's not about searching for answers outside ourselves. It's about turning inward, listening to the whispers of our own souls.
Yes, exactly.
I like that.
The journey of self-discovery is the greatest adventure of all, and it's a journey that's available to each and every one of us.
It's amazing to think that these ancient teachings, often veiled in all this mystery and symbolism, are ultimately about empowering us to access the wisdom that's within ourselves. But I have to admit, sometimes all this talk about cosmic forces and ancient mysteries, it can make my head spin a little bit.
Sure.
Is there a way to ground these teachings to make them more applicable to, just everyday life?
Absolutely. And, remember, these traditions weren't just about abstract philosophy. It was about living a more harmonious and fulfilling life.
Right.
And Hall highlights a lot of these practical techniques used by the ancients to cultivate self-awareness and connect with a deeper reality.
Okay, so less cosmic theory, more down-to-earth practices.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of techniques are we talking about?
Well, for instance, Hall describes this Pythagorean practice of retrospection.
Okay.
So imagine ending each day by mentally reviewing everything you did, thought, and felt.
Okay.
Kind of like a nightly debriefing session with your own soul.
So they were basically doing like a pre-sleep journaling session, but in their minds.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty cool idea. Just taking a few moments to reflect on the day, to learn from your experiences, and to kind of set intentions for the future. I like it. Did they have any other daily rituals or practices that we could kind of adapt for our modern lives?
Well, Pythagoras also emphasized the importance of silence.
Okay.
As a prerequisite for contemplation.
Right.
He believed that by quieting the mind, we create space for those deeper insights to emerge.
That makes sense. In our noisy, hyper-connected world, silence can feel like, kind of a rare commodity.
Yeah.
But it's so essential, though, for connecting with our inner wisdom, for hearing that still small voice that often gets drowned out by the external clamor.
Absolutely.
Okay, so less scrolling, more silence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like hitting the pause button on the external world so we can tune into those subtle frequencies of our inner world.
Exactly.
What about those, eccentric alchemists? Any fun anecdotes about their quest for, gold and enlightenment?
Oh, absolutely. Hall mentions how, the alchemists used all these cryptic symbols and allegories to conceal their true teaching. So imagine trying to decipher a recipe for the philosopher's stone that involves green lions and red dragons and philosophical eggs.
Okay, it's like a mystical riddle wrapped in an alchemical enigma.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if they were deliberately trying to make things more complicated.
Yeah, maybe they were.
Yeah.
But, maybe that was part of the process. Right. Forcing the initiates to think outside the box.
Yeah.
To develop their intuition and their symbolic literacy.
Yeah. It's like learning to read the book of nature. To see the hidden correspondences between the microcosm and the macrocosm, the human and the divine.
Right.
I like that. Let's not forget about those ancient oracles, though,
Right.
They weren't just about, predicting the future.
Right.
Were they?
Not at all. I mean, the oracles were seen as these sources of wisdom and guidance,
Okay.
Offering insights into those mysteries of life
Right.
and the human condition.
Okay, that's way more profound than asking, like, a magic 8-ball.
Yeah.
It's like they were, like, tapping into this source of wisdom
Mm-hmm.
that transcended personal opinions or, limited perspectives.
Right.
But Hall also talks about, like, this fascinating connection between, this ancient wisdom
Yeah.
and modern science.
Absolutely. And he suggests that a lot of the principles that were understood by the ancients
Yeah.
are being rediscovered by modern science,
Yeah.
through different language, different methodologies.
Yeah.
Take the auric bodies, for example.
Right.
Those subtle energy fields that were recognized by the ancient Egyptians.
Yeah.
And now they're being studied through things like Kirlian photography.
So it's like those ancient mystics were ahead of their time.
Mm-hmm.
They may not have had the scientific instruments to measure these energies,
Right.
but they were aware of their existence
Yeah.
and their influence on, like, human health and well-being.
Exactly. And this suggests that there's this, like, deeper level of reality.
Right.
This realm of, like, subtle energies and interconnectedness
Right.
that science is really just beginning to understand.
Right. And perhaps by, like, integrating, ancient wisdom and modern scientific inquiry,
Mm-hmm.
we can gain, like, a more holistic understanding of the universe
Right.
and our place within it.
Exactly.
It's like we're finally catching up to what those ancient sages, like, knew all along,
Mhm.
that we're not just these, like, isolated individuals, but part of this, like, vast web of life
Yeah.
and energy and consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get practical for a moment.
Okay.
What are, like, some concrete takeaways
Right.
from these secret teachings that we can,
Good question.
apply to our lives
Yeah.
today?
Well, I think one of the most valuable lessons is the emphasis on self-knowledge.
Oh.
The ancient Greeks had that saying, know thyself.
Right.
And this pursuit of self-understanding
Yeah.
really lies at the heart of, so many spiritual traditions.
Right. So it's not just about, accumulating knowledge. It's about turning inward,
Mm-hmm.
exploring our thoughts, emotions, and motivations,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately, like, discovering who we truly are.
Exactly. And that self-discovery can be aided
Yeah.
by things like meditation and introspection and journaling.
Right.
So by, like, quieting the mind, observing our inner landscape,
Yeah.
we can gain insights into our strengths,
Yeah.
weaknesses, and our patterns of behavior,
Right.
leading to, a more authentic and fulfilling life.
Okay. So less scrolling, more self-reflecting.
Exactly.
Yeah. But what about those who might be, like, feeling lost, uncertain about, like, their purpose
Yeah.
or direction in life? What guidance can these ancient traditions offer?
Well, a lot of these traditions emphasize the importance of, like, living in harmony with nature's rhythms.
Okay.
Aligning ourselves with the cycles of day and night, the seasons, the phases of the moon.
Right.
And by observing those natural patterns, we can actually gain a sense of grounding and purpose and connection.
So it's about kind of like finding our rhythm,
Yeah.
like tuning into the natural world
Mm-hmm.
and allowing those rhythms to, like, guide our lives.
Exactly. And that alignment can bring peace and purpose and joy.
Yeah.
As we realize we're not, separate from these rhythms, but we're actually an integral part of
Yeah.
this, like, grand symphony of existence.
Yeah. That's a beautiful image. Like, like finding that sweet spot
Mm-hmm.
where our inner compass, like, aligns with the universal flow.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into, Hall's secret teachings of all ages,
Mm-hmm.
what's, like, one final thought you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I think, the most important thing to remember is this, that search for truth, for meaning, for enlightenment, it's not a destination.
Why?
It's a journey.
Okay.
It's a journey that begins within. It's
Yeah.
a process of self-discovery and transformation,
Right.
and ultimately a realization of our interconnectedness with all things.
So it's not about reaching, some, like, final goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, like, embracing the journey,
Yeah.
the process of unfolding,
Right.
the constant exploration
Mhm.
of our inner and outer worlds.
I love that. I think that's beautifully put.
Yeah. Well, and as you kind of embark on this journey, may you approach it with, curiosity
Courage.
and courage and a sense of wonder, knowing that, the greatest discoveries lie not in these ancient texts or secret rituals,
Right.
but within the depths of your own heart.
Beautifully said. I couldn't agree more.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive
It's been a journey.
into Manly P. Hall's secret teachings of all ages. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired and energized and ready to, unlock that hidden wisdom that's within myself and the world around me.
Me too.
But remember, the journey doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that flame of curiosity burning bright.
Yeah, keep diving deep.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Did you get any of that?